Hey, Steve, it's good to see you again. What would you like to talk about?
Well, Mike, in about 2 weeks, I have to make a presentation to a very important prospective client, and I am really nervous about being able to do a good job.
Could you say more about that?
Yeah, well, to be honest, my last presentation wasn't so hot, and this time my sales manager will be with me.
Okay, so you're telling me that you have a double challenge with this presentation. First, to do a better job, and second, to satisfy your sales manager.
Right.
Specifically, what would you like to focus on?
Well, I want to talk about ways I can better prepare for this presentation and what I can do to make certain my sales manager supports what I'm going to say and how I'm going to say it.
Well, you mentioned that your last presentation didn't go very well. So what do you think went wrong? And be specific.
Okay. Well, I felt nervous going in. I couldn't seem to remember what I wanted to say, and I had to keep glancing at my notes. What I think bothered me the most was not getting any reaction from them as I made my key points. I kept good notes from my prior meetings with them, and I tried to emphasize what they had said was important to them, but I couldn't read their body language as I spoke. After, about 20 minutes, I just sped up and I focused on getting done. We got some business from them, but it wasn't what I had hoped for, and it sure wasn't what I told my sales manager to expect, which is probably why he's going with me this time.
Well, okay, let me summarize what I've just heard you say.
Okay.
You mentioned 5 things that caused your last presentation to not go well for you.
Okay.
You were nervous from the beginning. You had to keep referring to your notes.
Yeah.
You couldn't read how they were reacting, even though you covered what they had emphasized in previous meetings.
Mm-hmm.
You sped up at the end to get it over with. The business you got didn't match what you told your sales manager to expect, and you're wondering what it will take to get his support for this presentation.
Yep.
Now, did I get that right? And is there anything else that you want to add?
Yeah, well, as I listen to you summarize, I think there's a reality that I need to face.
And what is that?
Well, quite frankly, I wasn't as prepared as I usually am, which is also why I had to keep referring to my notes. I remember it well. I was not very well prepared at all. So I was really nervous, so I kept referring to my notes and getting more nervous, and it just wasn't a smooth presentation.
Okay. Well, that's an insightful way to describe the situation and to describe the challenge you now face. But can you think of anything else?
Actually, yes, I can. As I think back, one of the problems was that there were so many things that they had emphasized. It turned out to be a longer, more detailed presentation than what's typical. Even if I had been better prepared, it probably would still have been too long to expect them to simply sit there and listen. Usually I present for 10 to 15 minutes at the most before attempting to close a sale. This time it was more like 25 minutes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So you're seeing a key relationship between the length of the presentation and the need for preparation, but you also seem to be saying that going over 10 to 15 minutes is information overload.
Yes.
In other words, longer's not better, right?
Right.
What about getting support from your sales manager? Any further thoughts about that?
Well, he doesn't say much unless something goes wrong, so it's difficult to know what he's thinking on a day-to-day basis. He did say the other day that he had been disappointed with the results last time.
What are your expectations regarding the number of key items and the potential length of this upcoming presentation?
Well, that's part of my problem. See, there are as many key points to cover as the last time, maybe a couple more, and they're all important. That means potentially another 25-minute presentation, and I dread that thought.
Okay, dealing with that reality, what might you do to achieve your goal of a better presentation that is supported by your sales manager?
I guess the most obvious option is to simply create a 25-minute presentation and put more effort into preparation.
Well, let's not stop there. Can you think of any options other than a continuous presentation of 25 minutes?
I suppose I could break the presentation down into 3 or 4 segments of, say, 10 minutes each. As I think about it, I could ask a few questions in between to get their reaction.
Okay, how would you then determine what to cover in each segment?
I could organize it around the key points I want to make. In fact, that would enable me to sequence those points better. Once I covered them, I could begin by asking something like, is that an accurate understanding of the key points you made when we met on such and such a date? Yeah. I like that approach.
Now, besides avoiding information overload, what does this approach do for you?
Well, the best thing about it is that I'll know what they're thinking in incremental steps as we move toward closing the sale. Then, if I run into any problems, I can deal with them right away instead of trying to figure it all out at the end.
Well, it sounds to me like you have a workable solution, at least for half your problem. What about getting the support of your sales manager?
Yeah. He wants results, and he likes solutions. So I bet if I ran this idea by him tomorrow and asked him to review my presentation with me before we meet with the prospective client, I bet he'd go for it.
Are you totally comfortable with this solution? Do you have any concerns?
Well, I see 2 key challenges. First is organizing the key points of the presentation into the right segments. That's one of the reasons I thought of asking my sales manager to review it with me before we meet with the prospective client. The other is actually getting my sales manager to give me feedback, both tomorrow when I share this approach with him and then again later when we hopefully meet to review the presentation. I guess I won't know how he'll react until I ask.
Okay, just so we're both clear, tell me specifically what you're going to do.
Okay. Tomorrow, I am going to meet with my sales manager for 10 to 15 minutes to tell him about my strategy of breaking my long presentation into segments and then asking for feedback on each segment before moving ahead. Then, about 3 days before the presentation, I'm going to review the presentation with my sales manager, if he agrees, to get his feedback on how I have organized the segments and the feedback questions I'm going to use. I will set up that meeting with him tomorrow.
Sounds workable. Now, the question is, how will I know that you have met successfully with your sales manager and that he will be meeting with you for a final review?
I will send you an email late tomorrow afternoon and let you know what happened. If I can't meet with my sales manager tomorrow, I'll notify you of that by email, and then I'll send you another email right after I do meet with him.
Okay, that sounds great. I'll be looking for those emails, and I will see you next week.
All right.